Okay, I admit it, I was fat and slobby. I have always been overweight ever since I left school, but I never considered myself a slob until my wife called me 12 months ago. She probably called me much worse names just 6 months ago, and I think I could have said a few strong words to her too, but by that time I didn't have a single drop of fighting spirit left in me, and I just left the city far out of town. To be honest, here it is Jerry Cox, that's me, by the way, was and always will be a fat slob. Well, I said it, I accepted it, and I moved on. And this is not the only thing in which I have moved forward, which is why I am documenting my sad story. Perhaps someone will read it, cry, or even learn a lesson from my experience. I first met my wife Macy at school, but we were not a childhood sweetheart couple. We didn't start dating until a couple of years later, when I was halfway through my apprenticeship as a car mechanic. Yes, there were real apprenticeships in those days, and she was almost out of college, getting a qualification in banking and insurance. She was smarter than me, and I believed that I was better off working with my hands than with my head. As they say, to each his own. By then, I was what I called comfortably chubby, and Macy was about 20 pounds overweight when we started dating. We ate like typical young people, burgers, fries, and beer. I was short and stocky, only 5'6", and always ugly. It was in my genes. My father was an ugly bastard and also a vile person. I didn't know my grandfather, but I think my father inherited his appearance and character from him. I always thought that I didn't have my father's nastiness in me, since I was usually quite calm and good-natured, but now I know that this trait was just hiding inside, and in recent months it has burst out. I even surpassed my father in meanness. Although I am not proud of what I did and continue to do, it just so happened now I am learning to live with it. My excuse? I was provoked. Oh yes, they provoked it to the fullest. But my mother was an angel, and she really had to be an angel to put up with my abusive, womanizing father. I think it was from her that I got my patience and dedication. So, to sum it up, I was ugly in appearance, but kind in nature, and I was happy for a long time. Perhaps it was this innate good nature that made me more attractive for a while. I was certainly more trusting than I should have been when it came to the love of my life, and that was my mistake. Macy was short, only 5'3", with wide hips but a wasp waist and killer breasts. While I was relaxed and lazy, she was driven and hungry for success, but also energetic and full of life. Although she was not a classic beauty, she was sexy and vivacious. When we met again at the end of my teens, I simply fell head over heels in love with her. As I said, she was a little overweight, but she carried it well. Her skin was pale and transparent, her hair was thick, brown with a red tint, her eyes were dark hazel, and her teeth were even. She was simply charming, and when she smiled, she became irresistible, at least to me. Although I was already carrying extra pounds, I was active. I played football on weekends, trained a couple of times a week. We loved to go on long-distance hikes, but I was too fond of beer and my waistline was slowly losing in a one-sided battle. To be honest, I didn't even try to resist. Before we started dating, I only had 3 or 4 girlfriends, and Macy, as far as I know, only had one serious boyfriend. I thought that she and I were the perfect couple. But damn it, what did I even understand? I've never been ambitious. All I needed was a comfortable home, a passionate girlfriend to return to or go out with, regular dinners, and enough money for beer. So for a long time, life was wonderful, completely consistent with my expectations. My job, first repairing cars and then trucks, was not particularly hard, and I liked it. I worked in a small but old family company. I think Tremblett and Son started out fixing bicycles in Victorian times. I did not strive for promotion or responsibility at work. I preferred to live quietly. Macy was incredibly ambitious and was willing to work hard to climb the corporate ladder. They say opposites attract, right? I believed it for a while. We got married in the registry office without the big white wedding that most girls dream of, and I loved Macy even more for this compromise. Oh, how naive I was. I had no idea. We took the money our parents were saving for our wedding and put it toward a down payment on a house. The bank, looking at us, decided that we would most likely have children in the near future, so they offered me a mortgage for only 15 years. He was wrong about the kids, but that meant the house had been ours for the last 2 years. As soon as Maisie graduated from college, she got a job as a clerk at the local branch of the National Provincial Bank. Apparently, someone in the office made a remark to her about her weight, because suddenly she became more attentive to her appearance and began running in the evenings. At first, I ran with her, but we always ended up in the pub. She drank sparkling water, and I had a pint or two of the best ale. Then she joined the gym instead of jogging, and I realized that gyms are not my thing. And then everything went downhill. Over time, Macy became slender and fit, and I became fatter. She began to pay more attention to her appearance, getting her hair done more often, spending more and more money on elegant clothes and killer heels for work. At the same time, I grew my hair long, stopped shaving under my nose, and acquired a beer belly like a professional darts player. We never had children, and as it turned out, it was for the best. Maisie was constantly moving up the career ladder and putting off having a child until she achieved the maximum. But in fact, she never stopped. I agreed with everything Macy wanted. She literally wrapped me around her finger. I liked a quiet life, however. You already understood this, because it seems that we got to know each other well in such a short time. In addition, my brother and two sisters compensated for my inaction in the matter of procreation. They gave me 9 nephews and nieces. Macy's brother Colin also contributed to the expansion of the Goddard family, marrying twice and having 2 sons from his first marriage and 3 more children, a son and 2 twin daughters from his second. So Macy's genes were fine too. True, Christmas and birthdays began to cost us a pretty penny. As the only childless couple in the family, we automatically became the favorite aunt and uncle to all the children, and we had to maintain this status by giving generous gifts. It was good that Maisie had been promoted quickly. 3 years ago, she had become a bank branch manager and kept telling me, when I complained about her evening work, that she was about to get a regional position. I also didn't quite stand still in my work. As I mentioned, over time I moved from repairing cars to trucks, and about 8 years ago, I was assigned to help in the office after they introduced computers and the old staff couldn't handle them. I figured it all out, set up the workflow, and then organized order tracking and invoicing. The system turned out to be almost idiot-proof. I never thought that there would be complete idiots in the office. After some time, I was transferred to the office on a permanent basis, and I became responsible for customer service and booking services. In addition, he was involved in ordering spare parts, drawing up work schedules and vacation schedules. Without any instructions from the outside, I began to make charts for turnover, inventory levels, and repair time. It turned out that the boss really liked it. Since no one else in the office cared about computers, I asked the company to pay me for an evening course in HTML, which they did. Having mastered the basics, I created a website for the company and received a good bonus for it. In the early years of our marriage, Macy and I spent a lot of time together. We still enjoyed going camping on the weekends, although in the winter we had to combine it with my soccer games. Over time, we began to return to the same place on the coast more often and got used to the local cafes and pubs. So we came up with the idea of buying a dacha there. Of course, there was no talk about an apartment, and while we were looking for something affordable, several years passed. But when I was paid a bonus for creating the site, we had enough money for a down payment to buy a mobile home on a large campsite. There was a club there with cheap alcohol and entertainment on weekends during the season. After the purchase, we began to go there every week throughout the season, on holidays and on vacation. Soon my training and football matches with friends faded away. During the week, Macy looked perfect for work, but relaxed on the weekends. Swimsuit, flip-flops, light clothes, and I grew my hair so long that I had to tie it into a ponytail, and my mustache turned into a thick red beard because I completely abandoned shaving. I wore the same casual clothes to work, home, and camping. Macy was right. I was indeed turning into a fat slob. By the time we reached 18 years of marriage, we had established a well-established household routine. However, outside the home, the situation was changing. I gradually moved into truck sales while still managing the office, and I had to order a suit for myself. There were no standard sizes for me. Macy, meanwhile, took on more and more responsibilities, worked late a couple of times a week, went to advanced training courses, and after becoming branch manager 3 years ago, began spending her weekends at regional meetings. Then I started going to our campsite alone. Sometimes she came to see me on Sunday. We became a two-car family. She had a new company BMW, and I had a series of old rusty wrecks that I fixed in the workshop in my spare time. Due to the increased workload at the bank, Macy began to go to the gym less often and began to gain weight. A little at first, but it bothered her. I still thought she was beautiful, but my opinion mattered less and less to her, especially as I continued to gain weight. When she got the promotion, the economic crisis was in full swing and truck sales had plummeted. Our old family company was absorbed by a large international corporation and immediately closed, building a glass and metal car showroom on the outskirts of the city. Some employees were transferred, but not me. At over 30 years old and overweight, I didn't fit into their sleek, new image. For a long time, I could not find a new job. I did odd jobs, repaired old cars, and sold them. Mostly, I sat at home at the computer, filling out my resume and eating cookies with tea and toast with marmalade. In the end, I got a job in a small garage that did repairs and not so honest technical inspections. They also sold cheap used cars and vans. My experience working with trucks helped me get a position, albeit with half the salary. It wasn't the most successful company. They didn't even have a website. I fixed it within the first week. Meanwhile, things were getting tense at home. At the beginning and end of the day, Macy saw me either buried in the computer or slumped in a chair. I was cooking dinner, but otherwise I was completely helpless with housework, and this irritated her. She complained about my snoring. The extra weight didn't help. She said that she needed good sleep to be in shape at work, and eventually moved me from the bed to a chair. At first I thought it was temporary, but it turned out to be permanent. So we stopped having sex. At first I didn't take it seriously, but then we started having arguments, and we never fought before. Although I tried different diets, I never stayed on any one for more than a few days, and my weight continued to rise. I experienced a real shock after Christmas a year and a half ago. When I stepped on the bathroom scale, the needle went off the scale. Macy also decided that she needed to tighten up and lose a couple of kilograms that she had gained over the holidays. We both liked to have a good drink, me beer, and she a couple of bottles of white wine. So she joined the gym again, going twice a week and taking weight loss classes on Mondays. Add to this her 2 working evenings at the bank, and it turns out that I hardly saw her. I immediately noticed that the gym and diet were doing her good. She lost 6 pounds in the first 3 weeks, so I decided to try it too. I was thinking about joining a weight loss group and maybe hitting the gym after I lost some weight. Honestly, at 20+ stone and over 127 kilograms, I couldn't run for a minute without taking a break. Late one evening, when it was already dark outside, I tried to go for a run around the neighborhood. I covered 100 meters, after which I was forced to take a step. The remaining journey took me half an hour. I didn't want to repeat this experiment anymore. For some reason, Macy didn't seem particularly enthusiastic when I said I wanted to go on a weight loss course with her. I thought she would be happy that I finally decided to do something about my uniform. To be honest, I didn't feel comfortable going there alone. I imagined that the group would consist exclusively of women. At the first lesson, we, beginners, were gathered in a separate room. There were about 6 of us. I looked around. Everyone except me turned out to be overweight women who had clearly been trying to lose weight for several years. The first hour we were told about the basics of nutrition, how to properly balance food, which foods are filling without fat, and which ones should be avoided because of carbohydrates and sugar. Everything seemed simple and logical. We were then taken to the main hall where the main group was meeting. Here a surprise awaited me. There were fewer men than women, but still there were a lot of them, about a quarter of the entire group. so I didn't feel completely out of place. The hall in the village club was packed to capacity. Macy had already taken a seat for me next to her. On her other side sat a big man of about 36.5 feet tall, almost 2 meters, and without a drop of excess fat. I later learned that he was a goal weight participant, that is, he had already lost everything he wanted to, but continued to walk to stay in shape. It turns out that inside every former fat person their lives an even fatter person who wants to break out. On the other side of me sat a young woman who weighed almost the same as me. As I pushed past her, she gave me a big smile. There was almost no space left between us, even a cigarette piece of paper wouldn't fit. In contrast to the plump woman's warm smile, Macy merely rolled her eyes as I clumsily made my way to the chair, stepping on at least 3 feet along the way. It's very difficult to place your feet safely when you can't really see them because of your fat belly. Even Apollo, sitting next to Macy, seemed to look disdainfully in my direction, but perhaps that's the default way skinny people have faces. However, I always smiled. I was fat, but by nature I was a happy fat man. I fully maintained the diet regimen, and since I always came home from work early, I cooked meals on weekdays. I enthusiastically took on new recipes for weight loss. I enjoyed making fresh soups with lean meats, pasta dishes, low-fat potato wedges, and yogurt with fresh fruit for dessert. Soon I stocked the refrigerator with salads and fruit for snacking. At my next weigh-in, I lost 17 pounds and felt great. Macy, as usual, had only lost 1 pound and looked completely miserable. Maybe this is just my opinion, or maybe this applies to all hot-blooded men, but I don't believe that there are ugly women. The whole point is how you perceive your appearance as opposed to how others see you. Whether young girls or older women, they all have their own charm and grace, no matter how fat or thin they think they are. The Monday weigh-ins at the village club were a real eye-opener for me. All the men and women present there wore the lightest and most revealing clothes in order to weigh less. Once I weighed myself, I purposefully led Macy to the place where I had the best view of what was happening. In addition to the expected older and middle-aged women, there were plenty of young college girls looking to get in shape for summer vacation, weddings, or proms. In my opinion, many of them did not need to lose weight at all. It turned out that female beauty is a matter of perception, and I noted every graceful line with admiration, trying my best not to look lustful. To be honest, I'm not sure I succeeded. I hadn't had sex at home for a long time, so maybe I was just adding to my memory bank. Being a naturally smiling person who loved to communicate with everyone, I said a few words of support or sympathy to each cute creature and received smiles, and sometimes joyful exclamations in return. There were high fives and even the occasional hug. I loved it. Mondays quickly became my favorite day, and the rest of the week fell short of them. Perhaps it was the lack of regular sex, but to me, each of these girls, women, ladies, whoever they thought they were, was just at a slightly different stage of splendor. I tried to look like the most impartial observer possible when I saw how these beauties gracefully took off their outerwear and shoes, gracefully stepped on the scales, and reacted to the result positively or not so much. I openly applauded, encouraged, or consoled, justifying my close attention to what was happening. Gavin, the tall, slender guy I sat next to last week, nodded at me with a grin as he put on his shoes after the weigh-in. Apparently, he had a good result. I nodded back with a more sincere smile, although inside I continued to feel antipathy towards him. Apparently, I have a sixth sense because, as it turns out, he really turned out to be a problem. Karen, the plump girl I sat next to at the first meeting, patiently waited her turn, smiling at people she knew, including me. She then jumped off the scale with a beaming smile and her hands in the air. I gave her 2 thumbs up and was genuinely happy for her. Emma, a weight loss consultant, went through the results, offered help to those who weren't successful, and even more support to those who did. She reminded that even for those who have already reached their goal, it is important to continue to attend weigh-ins because everyone knows that those who quit usually gain even more than they lost. In the second week, I became the weight loss of the week and continued to lose 4 or 5 pounds a week, sometimes more, while Maisie would lose 1 pound and then gain half back, despite all the hours spent in the gym after work. I felt great, never hungry and full of energy. I even started jogging in the evenings after cooking dinner. By the end of February, I had lost 3 stone, by the end of March, almost 5, and 2 weeks before the May holidays, I had lost 6 stone and was just a few pounds away from my ideal weight, my ultimate goal. Macy reached her goal of minus 20 pounds in mid-April, which took her 16 weeks. And in a little less time, I lost 4 times as much and was damn pleased with myself. At work, everyone noticed my changes and said that I looked healthy and radiant. But Macy looked haggard, exhausted, as if she had aged 10 years. She still rejected my attempts at intimacy, but I was no longer sure whether I wanted her myself. This sad, thin old woman no longer attracted me. But Karen, the same plump girl with a beautiful smile with whom I sat on the first day, also achieved her goal and looked amazing. She was happily married and had a 1-year-old son, whom I saw when she brought her old Renault Clio for an inspection. I replaced a couple of burned-out light bulbs, tweaked the mixture to meet emissions standards, and was rewarded with one of her dazzling smiles and an introduction to the baby. I helped strap him into his car seat and noticed that the child had inherited his mother's smile. I don't know if men can become brutal, but all that day I had the feeling that I had missed the opportunity to become a father at the insistence of Macy, who wanted to build a career. Now it seemed to me that this chance was lost forever. And at home, Macy continued to push me away, citing fatigue or the fact that I was still too heavy. But I didn't worry, I trusted her. I could be patient. Oh yeah, my middle name should have been Job, not Andrew. I was sure that I would lose a little more weight and become irresistible to women, or at least for one my wife. Well, you already understand that I live in a world of my own fantasies, right? But as it turned out, I was just a fool. At work, they noticed that I had become slimmer. I kept my hair cut short from the start of the diet to lose weight, shaved almost every day, and updated my wardrobe as my figure changed. I looked good and dressed smart, so my boss, Dick, offered me a promotion, a job at the reception, where I had to sign up clients for service and issue invoices. Company Backstreet Motors began buying old cars at auctions, repairing them at minimal cost, and quickly reselling them on a plot of land rented behind the workshop. Dick wanted me to display them on the company website, which I designed myself, and I was happy to do it. Sales went up sharply, and my salary increased significantly. In winter, we went to the coast only a couple of times a month. We did the necessary repairs in our caravan, eliminated the consequences of storms, touched up the paint, and did general cleaning. Then Maisie stopped driving with me. She said that she took work home, and that, having lost weight, she began to freeze more in the parking lot in the winter. I understood her, because after losing excess fat, I also began to feel the cold more strongly. I continued to drive alone, preparing our motorhome for the traditional week-long May trip. I was looking forward to this vacation, looking forward to finally spending time with Macy alone. I thought that maybe I would even be lucky. What if passion flared up again? Yes, I love looking at women, what man doesn't? But thanks to my innate sense of fidelity, I was in love only with my wife and did not think about any affairs. I was sure she felt the same way. Well, I told you I live in a fantasy world. After losing weight and making lifestyle changes, I felt energized. Not only did I cook all of Macy's weekend dinners that she could just heat up in the microwave, but I also got our caravan in order in record time. I did such a good job preparing for the season that our site was the best in the lot. For the first time ever, we received a spring prize. The camp committee even put up a sign in front of our cabin announcing that I was the winner. The last weekend before the May holidays, I did practically nothing, since all the work was completed. But I was glad because it allowed me to chat with my camping neighbors. They showered me with compliments, not only about the caravan, but also about my appearance. Many people immediately noticed how my figure changed after losing weight. If I weren't so modest, perhaps this praise would have gone to my head. For the first time in all the years we had a caravan, I did chores shirtless most of the time. Although I have fair skin, by the end of April, I had already developed a healthy tan. I was pleased with myself and was confident that as soon as the weather warmed up, I would be able to get back into Macy's good graces after all. I was now one of the fittest guys in the area. Of course, I was still ugly. There's nothing you can do about it, jeans. But if it was dark, I could pass for a god. I told you I was stupid, so you won't be surprised by what happened next, right? Karen was the first to tell me about Macy. I was completely unaware. This wonderful girl, once plump and now radiant, cared enough about my feelings to stop by my garage 2 Thursdays before the May holiday. This time she came without little Daniel. I left the car in a public parking lot, so I was surprised to see it in our workshop. She asked to speak to me alone. We had an office in our showroom where we usually processed car financing deals. On the way there, I took 2 plastic cups of coffee from the machine and led her inside. I moved a chair next to her, removing the barrier in the form of a table, and sat down opposite her. Karen was nervous, fingering the glass in her hands, hesitating before speaking. Her usual sunny smile disappeared, and her face was clouded with anxiety. She was wearing a simple blue aligned dress. It was a warm day. Karen was truly wonderful. Her husband was lucky. In the 4 months since Christmas, she had lost all the extra weight she had gained during her pregnancy and had turned into an incredibly beautiful young woman. I'll tell you honestly, I didn't have any feelings for her. She wasn't young enough to be my daughter, but she was too young for a stiff middle-aged man like me. Besides, I was sure that she was happily married. Once she even hinted that she and her husband were seriously thinking about a second child. I waited patiently for her to speak, deciding to ease the tension with a question. "How is little Daniel doing?" This made her smile again. Then I continued. "Come on, Karen, spit it out, honey," I said, trying to put on the most disarming smile I could muster. "You didn't just stop by to chat, right?" She looked into my eyes. Her own were filled with tears. "I don't think you'll like this." Karen hesitated and looked down into her cup of coffee. A couple of tears rolled down her nose and fell into the cloudy brown liquid. I didn't say anything. It seemed to me that I already guessed what it would be about and was in no hurry to hear it. Karen took a sip of coffee and I followed suit. It tasted even more disgusting than usual. "You know that I started going to the gym a couple of times a week." She looked up at me. "Yes," I nodded, "and you look absolutely amazing." She smiled faintly. "I often meet others from our club there, like Macy and—" She stared into the glass again, Gavin. She paused, then blurted out. "Yesterday, I saw them kissing in his car." I took a deep breath, then exhaled slowly, collecting my thoughts. "Are you sure it was them?" "Yes," she nodded, tears appearing in her eyes again. "Macy was wearing a bright yellow tracksuit. I think it's new. She left right after Gavin while I was in the middle of training. I parked in the back row, under the trees, where it was darkest, because there were no other places. I came out about 30 minutes after her and saw Gavin's car parked a couple of places away from mine." Karen exhaled. "I suspected it before, but now I'm sure. They've been training together for months now, not caring at all about who sees them, especially considering that you don't go to the gym." She fell silent. I sat there, dumbfounded, going over all the signs in my head that I had stubbornly ignored. Karen squeezed my hands, then stood up and walked out silently. I looked down and saw that my fists were clenched, the plastic cup was crushed, and the coffee was spilled on the floor. I was angry. I was in pain, and I felt like a total idiot. All this time I thought that if I lost weight, I would again become desirable to my wife, that we just need to get in shape and our marriage will return to normal. What naivety! It was now obvious. Macy didn't want me to go to the club with her. I was only disturbing her. Now it was clear why she always looked so unhappy when I took a seat next to her or stood behind her in line. All the signs were there, and not just recently. I've turned a blind eye to them for too long. I wondered what she was going to do tonight. Today was Thursday according to her schedule. She had late meetings at the bank. On Monday, weight loss club. On Tuesday and Thursday, work late, Wednesday and Friday gym. It turns out that the only evenings she spent at home were Saturday and Sunday, but only if I didn't go to our caravan for the weekend, then she could manage her time as she wanted. Crap. Even when I called her in the evenings from the coast and she didn't pick up, I always thought, she's probably taking a bath, or she's watching something interesting on TV, she'll call back later. She could be anywhere. If Gavin didn't pay for the hotel room, then they were using our marital bed. My eyes didn't just open, they popped onto my forehead. I began to realize that Macy was probably cheating on me, not just once a week, but much more often. I couldn't just sit at home and deal with it. It's time to wake up and smell the fucking roses. My own daily routine each week was fairly simple. Okay, he was really boring. In my early middle age, I became frighteningly domestic. Every day I returned home immediately after work and cooked dinner. On Mondays, we both went to a weight loss club, and the rest of the evenings of the week I stayed home alone, with the exception of Friday and Saturday. In recent months, I have been traveling to our motorhome once a month, returning home on Sunday evenings. It's been a long time since I stopped playing football. I have practically no friends left except my work colleagues. However, my boring routine meant that from Tuesday to Friday evenings, I had the opportunity to keep an eye on her. Movements. Let's take Thursday. Today, she worked late at the bank until 9 in the evening. Or not. I called the bank and tried to contact Macy, but got nothing, just a standard answering machine message saying that the bank was no longer open. Then I called her on her cell phone, but my call immediately went to voicemail. However, this was in order. I left a message saying I was going to meet Russ and Kevin from the office to play darts and would be home by 10. I added that I would leave her dinner in the microwave. That evening, I arrived at the bank around 7 o'clock to find her car no longer in the parking lot and the building in darkness. Crap, where is she? There was still one car inside behind the security fence, a Ford Mondeo with a child seat and the sticker, "There's a child in the car," on the rear window. It is clear that it was used by a family man. I couldn't get to the car because there were surveillance cameras in the parking lot. There were only 2 exits from High Street. I decided to wait where my wife was supposed to pass on her way home. I parked near the alley leading to the service area behind the shops and waited for almost 2 hours. Around 9 o'clock in the evening, I saw my wife drive by as if she had no worries on her mind. I started the car and drove straight to the intersection. I didn't have to wait long. A few seconds later, I passed by Mondeo and took the right lane. Macy had already turned left towards the house. Taking care of a car is not an easy task, especially if you are inexperienced. In the movies, it looks deceptively easy. At the second traffic light, I almost fell behind, having jumped through the red light at the very last moment. Then, in order not to attract attention, I kept my distance, but at that moment, a couple of reckless drivers wedged themselves between us, and I almost missed the turn forwards to a residential area 3 to 4 miles from the center. I followed him until he turned into a dead-end street, then drove a little further, parked, and calmly walked back. Fortunately, he did not drive the car into the garage, but left it right in his driveway pocket. Due to the darkness, I could not see the house number, but counting from the well-lit house, number 18, I figured that Mr. Banker, whoever he was, lived at number 22 on Fairfield Walk. On the way back, I stopped at a pub, Cock and Pint, drinking a mug of ale so Maisie could smell it and think I was really with friends. I shouldn't have bothered. By that time, she had already taken a shower, had dinner, and gone to bed, leaving me to wash the dishes. Apparently, even outside of bed, I was still of some use. It was my first glass of beer since I went on a diet, but I no longer cared whether it would affect my weight or not. Gain weight? This thought got me thinking. Friday was one of her gym nights, so I dressed in dark clothes and hid in the bushes behind the parking lot. We didn't have to wait long. Soon Gavin pulled up in his gorgeous red BMW with a license plate that had the word gift. Not surprisingly, Karen immediately recognized his car. As expected, an hour and 10 minutes later, Gavin returned alone, but did not leave immediately, but remained waiting in the car. A couple of minutes later, my loving wife appeared. She walked to the car and sat in the back seat. Gavin walked out the front door, looked around, and sat back as well. So why was I still sitting in the bushes? Any normal guy in this situation would have rushed in and smashed both of them, instead of letting their bodies collide over and over again. Oh yes, I was angry, you can be sure. But I didn't want to stop them, at least not any time soon, and I certainly didn't want her back. I needed revenge, and I figured out how to take revenge, at least partially. I tiptoed up to the car and, using a small screwdriver that I always carried in my shirt pocket, slowly released the air from all four tires. He then crawled back a few cars on his hands and knees before standing up and finding Macy's car. I knew that if I flattened her tires too, she would realize it was me. So I just stuck a pocket knife into the side of one of the wheels to make it look like random vandalism. Thinking that Gavin had gotten off too easily, I snuck up on him again. BMW, and this time he cut off all four tire valves and then threw them into the bushes. After that, I went home and lay down on the sun lounger, pretending to be asleep, when Maisie returned around 11:30. She clicked her heels loudly, took a shower, and stomped around the house irritably, and I pretended to be asleep. That night, I never went to bed, but ended up dozing off right in the chair. On Saturday morning, I checked the microwave and her dinner was still untouched. I left the house as soon as I heard her get up to go to the toilet. I didn't want to confront her so as not to lose my composure. Her car was parked in the yard, and there was a spare on the rear left wheel. I let it out 3/4 of the air and drove a couple of nails into the tire, hoping it would puncture halfway to the supermarket and be stranded on the highway without a spare. I knew this was just the beginning. Usually on Saturdays, when I wasn't going to the coast, I worked overtime from 7 in the morning until noon at a car repair shop. Saturday morning is one of the busiest times of the week, but this time I took the day off. I went into town and bought several cans of bodybuilding protein powder, a case of wine, a case of beer, and a bunch of candy bars. I guessed that when Maisie got home, she would want a glass or two of wine. When I returned, no one was home. I poured the protein into empty flour and sugar cans and packed the rest in regular bags and hid it at the top of the kitchen cabinets, out of reach. Then I started making the pasta sauce, adding lots of olive oil and protein. I was sure that if Maisie drank enough wine, she wouldn't notice any difference in the taste. After this, I drove to house number 22 Fairfield Walk to try to see the same banker, but his car was not there. I then called Emma, our weight loss consultant, to get Gavin's address. I said that I had agreed to pick up some prescriptions from him, but had lost the note with his address. She gave it to me without any problems because, as she thought, we got along well. I went to see him, but his bright red car was also nowhere to be seen. However, once I was there, I rang the doorbell. His wife opened the door for me, an attractive, confident woman of about 30. We sat down, and I immediately got down to business. I said that her husband was cheating on her with my wife. As soon as I asked to talk to her alone, she understood what we were going to talk about. She already suspected Gavin of cheating, but he always denied everything, and she never had evidence. Adrian, that was her name, raised 3 small children and wanted to save the family. I said that if she wanted to keep him, then she should keep him on a short leash, hinting that someone she knew was watching him and telling her everything he found out. I confessed to her that I vandalized his car in the gym parking lot and told her that I was now going to do everything to get in the way of their relationship. She laughed, said it was very funny, and suggested we keep in touch to exchange information about our halves. We exchanged numbers and email addresses, and I got ready to leave. When I left her house, I saw a missed call from Macy. I had a hunch what it was about, and I called her back on the move. She screamed that she was stuck on the highway with a flat tire and that it was my fault for not checking her spare tire. "Honey," I answered calmly, "you didn't even tell me that you've already used the spare tire." She fell silent, probably not wanting to explain how and under what circumstances she changed it. I said, "I'll stop by the garage to get a spare tire for BMW, and I'll be with you in half an hour." I said goodbye to lovely Adrian at her door. Before leaving, I took her hands and said with sincere regret that I was sorry that I brought her such bad news about her husband's infidelity. Then my eyes filled with tears. Adrian came closer and hugged me and held me against her shoulder, gently patting and stroking my back. I gently patted her back, choosing the neutral zone between her shoulder blades. She consoled me like a child, saying that everything would be fine. We hugged for a few more seconds, then pulled away and kissed each other on the cheek goodbye. Then I went to rescue my soon-to-be ex-wife Macy. As I drove, I thought about my situation over and over again. Of course, I haven't thought about anything else since Karen hinted to me about my wife's infidelity. How did I feel about her lovers, Gavin and the mysterious banker? To be honest, their fault was secondary. The main culprit in all this is Macy herself. After all, no matter what her reasons were, she had no right to do this. This was not an accidental betrayal due to drunkenness, not a mistake she had two affairs on the side at once. She and I swore an oath of fidelity to each other, swore to love and keep, and she had to keep it. When we got married, we were equal. Yes, perhaps she was prettier than me, and who isn't? But I compensated for this by supporting her in everything, paying for her studies, giving her a roof over her head while she built a career. Since then, she has changed a lot. She made a career, became prettier, and became successful. What about me? I stayed the same, my appearance worsened, and even after losing weight, I still didn't look attractive. Loose skin, lack of tone. We were no longer on the same level. She moved to the championship league, and until recently I was in the amateur division. Now I made it to the second league, but I was still far from it. Will I ever be able to catch up with her? And most importantly, did I want this? Did I want to return the woman who betrayed me so much? I despised Gavin. How can you have a wife and children and still live like a bachelor? Adrian is a beautiful and smart woman. I didn't understand how he could look at someone like Macy. And this banker, he was also a family man. I didn't want to destroy their families, but I wanted my wife to suffer. After all this thinking, I finally reached the place where her car was parked. By this time, it began to rain heavily, and the police forced her to get out of the car and stand behind a barrier. I later found out that she was given a ticket and added demerit points for having a faulty spare tire. She looked wet and miserable, and I couldn't help but smile. In the end, it's all her fault. If she decided to sleep with just anyone, then don't be surprised that her life is starting to fall apart. My joyful, "Well, what happened?" brought a furious look from her. This amused me even more, although I wisely turned my back to her and started working on the car. I replaced the wheel and threw the punctured tire into the trunk. Opening her trunk, I noticed that there were no purchases there. Although she went shopping all morning and returned home across the highway. Apparently, she spent time not in the supermarket, but with Gavin or the banker. From that day on, I decided to monitor the mileage of her car in order to at least roughly understand where she goes. I went to change the tires and she went home. When that was all over, I decided to try my luck and call on the banker. His car was there. I knocked on the door, and within seconds the garage door opened. Standing in front of me was a tall, thin guy in his early 20s with thinning blonde hair. He wiped his hands with a rag. "Hey, buddy," I said. "My name is Jerry Cox. I'm Macy's husband. Can I talk to you alone?" He looked alarmed, his face turned pale, and he began to back away. I followed him into the garage. "I'm here because I've heard some rumors about you and my wife," I said, "and I want to clear things up firsthand." "There is nothing between us," he answered nervously. "Mrs. Cox and I are just colleagues, that's all." "If and only," I said with increasing irritation in my voice. "That means you have nothing to worry about, right, buddy?" His eyes darted around. He avoided looking at my face. I looked around. In the center of the garage was a large dollhouse that he was apparently painting, most likely for his daughter. I remembered the child's seat in his Ford Mondeo. At that moment, the door leading into the house swung open, and a young woman, short, with a noticeably rounded belly, appeared in the opening. She was clearly pregnant. "Oh, I heard someone knocking," she said, looking at us warily. "Everything is fine?" I smiled widely and extended my hand to her. She shook it mechanically, although there was concern in her eyes. "Hi, I'm Jerry," I introduced myself. "I just came in to chat about business at the bank. You know, those walls have ears. By the way, you look amazing. When is your deadline? Do you already know who will be a boy or a girl?" She smiled faintly. "I'm Josephine Jerry. Thank you." Gordon and I decided not to find out the gender in advance. 9 weeks left. Summer baby, huh? I hope the heat hasn't caused you too much trouble these past few weeks. Would you consider it impertinent if I asked for a cup of tea? I got wet while changing a tire on the highway. I pointed to the wet jeans and coat. I probably look like a tramp. "I don't want to drip on your carpet, so I'll just wait here with Gordon." I smiled widely again. I had one proven tactic. Even if I'm a freak, I always seem sincere. Josephine smiled back and walked into the house, and I turned to her husband. "You have a good family, Gordon. As I understand it, you still have a little daughter." I nodded at the dollhouse. "Yes, Kylie turns 3 next month." Then he fell silent. "Listen, I'll tell you straight. I think you're putting your family life at risk by having fun with my nearest and dearest, and I want it to stop before anyone gets hurt. Nothing happens, we just meet and talk, that's all. I have enough problems as it is, and I can't afford to lose my job. Talk to your boss as much as you want, but if things go any further, you'll be in trouble. So where do you meet for your conversations? Because you are not at the bank until late, as I was given to understand." Gordon fiddled with his hands, struggling to find an acceptable answer to my direct question. Suddenly, the back door of the garage opened and Josephine came in with a tray containing a teapot, mugs, milk, sugar, and a plate of cookies. This interrupted our conversation for a while. Gordon cleared some space on the chest freezer in the corner, and I took the tray from Josephine and set it down. She said she should go straight back to Kylie, who was watching TV. I thanked her and she left, giving her husband a worried look. I poured us both some tea and, mug in hand, walked over to look at the dollhouse. "I bought it from an ad. I want to fix it up for Kylie's birthday. I've been working on it all morning, but I'm not moving too fast," Gordon said. This means that today he was not my opponent. He may have been an excellent banker, but as a jack of all trades, he was a complete zero. I used my van to store everything I needed to paint and renovate my mobile home at a campsite, and I have to say, I'm pretty handy. I brought my workmate, tools, and some scrap wood, made a toy washing machine and stove for the dollhouse kitchen, painted them using a bunch of brushes. Gordon only had a couple of brushes that were too big for the job. Using a sheet of marine plywood, I made a new roof for the dollhouse to replace the damaged one. In my box of odds and ends, I found brass hinges so that the new roof could open like an extra door, adding realism and ease of play. I told Gordon that I had a small can of red paint in the shed at home and promised to bring it the next day so he could paint the roof. When Josephine returned for the tea supplies half an hour later, she found us at work, discussing what items could be used as furniture and decor. We had a fun couple of hours, after which I said goodbye to this married couple and shook Gordon's hand. Josephine kissed me on the cheek, hugged me, and quietly thanked me for helping me create a special gift for Kylie. It was nice to feel needed by my wife's lover. I perfectly understood the irony of this situation. When I got home, Macy had already showered, changed clothes, and, oddly enough, was waiting for me to cook dinner. Although I could well believe this. At least she had already found wine in the refrigerator, managed to drink 2 glasses, and was pretty irritated. When she asked where the hell I had been, I replied that after buying new tires for her car, I was helping a friend with a repair, just like I had planned before her emergency on the highway. I said I'll change the tires tomorrow. For dinner, I made her carbonara, adding a generous amount of olive oil and whey protein to the sauce, instead of her usual low-fat olive oil-flavored spray. For myself, I made poached eggs on whole grain toast with steamed vegetables. When I looked in the refrigerator, I quickly counted the stock and noticed that a couple of small chocolate bars were missing. Hee hee, I love it when a plan works. Yes, this is a childish act, but at that moment I had no time for high moral principles. I clung to any small joys. The next morning, I put the chicken in the oven, changed the tire on Macy's car, and stopped by Gordon's to drop off the paint and color-printed wallpaper I downloaded from the internet on Saturday night. Josephine opened the door. "Joe, you are absolutely radiant today," I said, hugging and kissing her on the cheek. She smiled and squeezed me back tightly. She really looked amazing. I unscrewed the roof of the dollhouse, leaving Gordon to apply a couple of coats of red paint while I set about cutting up the wallpaper and papering the walls in the tiny rooms. Josephine brought us a bottle of beer, complimented our work, and invited me to lunch, but I declined, saying I had to go home to finish cooking the roast. I will never forget her comment. "Oh, the man who cooks. Your wife is probably praying for you." Yeah, of course. As soon as Josephine left, Gordon quietly and directly admitted, "We've been sleeping together on Tuesdays and Thursdays for 3 months now." He looked me straight in the eye before continuing. I looked up from papering the dollhouse and nodded, indicating that I was listening. I wasn't angry. Rather, I felt humility. It started at that quarterly meeting at the Ferndale Valley Convention Center. Managers sometimes bring along a junior employee to broaden their experience, and this time it was my turn for the first time. There are a few training sessions at these meetings, but mostly it's just entertainment for the bosses and an excuse for extramarital affairs for the night. It turns out that almost everyone there is doing this, and those who do not participate simply turn a blind eye. Rumor has it that the missus usually chooses Stuart Marshall Hobbs, our area manager. But apparently he couldn't make it that weekend, so I had the honor of filling in for him. Gordon took several long sips of his beer while I processed what I had just said. I continued to wallpaper the dollhouse, not knowing what to say. "It was kind of exciting the first night," Gordon admitted. "I've never been in a situation like this, but since everyone was doing it and not even trying to hide, I thought, screw it, it's only one time, unless Josie finds out. And then, when we returned, your wife wanted continuation, and I had no choice. At first it was still funny, but soon it only became nervous. Lying all the time was torture, and I began to hate it. It was just sex, no love. This is not a novel, I just." He fell silent, searching for words, but I finished for him. "Giving her something she didn't get at home." That's exactly what she told me. Well, she didn't lie there. We stopped really talking a long time ago, and when she lost interest in intimacy, I decided that she was simply going through age-related changes and did not want to be disturbed. If I knew she needed sex 4 times a week, I would happily provide it to her. 4 times? We just met. Oh, damn. Yes, damn it. You on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Sheethead Gavin Wednesdays and Fridays. And perhaps yesterday morning from 10 to noon. I hope you always used a condom. Yes, I always insist. Usually. But Mrs. Cox prefers without protection, and a couple of times she got her way. Crap. I think I should check my health tomorrow morning. I advise you to do the same. You know, just a couple of days ago, I thought that Macy and I were just going through a difficult period, that she loved me as much as I loved her. Now I'm no longer sure if she ever loved me. I didn't even suspect it. A friend told me about this. Gordon looked depressed. I never wanted this. I wasn't looking for an affair. I love Josie. She is my childhood love, and I want to save my family. This is my whole life. I won't survive if she finds out and hates me. Gordon was on the verge of tears. The problem is, Gordon, secrets like these don't stay hidden forever, I said quietly. And when the truth comes out, it usually kills any relationship. As for me, I no longer have a wife. It's over. She destroyed every feeling I ever had for her. But as for you and Josie, she won't know about it from me. Only now you must treat her like a princess and become absolutely indispensable to her. Because if she ever finds out, then this whole thing, this whole gift for Kylie will be meaningless if you break both of their hearts when they serve you with a divorce decree. Gordon took a deep breath and nodded. The next quarterly meeting in Ferndale Valley is this weekend, he said. I won't go. Mrs. Cox is taking one of the girls from the office with her. So Marshall Hobbs will definitely be there. I thought about it. Can you act like nothing has changed when you meet Macy on Tuesday and Thursday, so that she wouldn't guess anything? I think there will be a storm next Monday. I laughed, and so did Gordon. He said he would try to keep up appearances. When I finished wallpapering the dollhouse, I said goodbye to their family. Kylie and Josephine hugged me tightly. I was even invited to Kylie's birthday party. I whistled a happy tune as I walked home. I came up with a plan. On the way back in the van, I called Adrienne and told her what I had just learned. My wife had been regularly having unprotected sex with at least 2 lovers for the past 4 months. I was about to make an appointment for a test. I've never heard such curse words from a woman before. I even wanted to Google some of the expressions when I got home. Macy was still lying in bed, enjoying a long morning's sleep when I returned. We barely spoke at dinner on Sunday. After eating, I retired to the garage, sorting out the tools that I planned to take with me when I finally left this house. On Monday morning, I went to my boss's office as soon as he arrived at 9 in the morning. I said that my marriage was over and I needed to take time off to sort out personal matters. I also said that as soon as everything is settled, I will quit my job because I am going to sell the house and go abroad to find myself. He understood everything. I went through this myself. He asked if I could continue to work on the site remotely. I said yes, I have access to the server, so I can work at any time as long as they have photos and descriptions of the cars. We agreed on a price for the service. Then I spent 20 minutes explaining to Glennies, the office assistant, how to use the digital camera and download the pictures to the correct folder on the hard drive. I reminded her to never turn off the hard drive so that I would still have access. After that, I shook hands with everyone and left. Free. The next thing I did was call the Planned Parenthood clinic and make an appointment for a test on Wednesday afternoon. Fortunately, the house was registered in my name. When we bought it, I was the sole breadwinner and Macy was still studying. Therefore, the mortgage, and therefore the right of ownership, belonged only to me. But since we paid off the mortgage during marriage, in the divorce she will receive 50% of the sale. However, this meant that I could sell the house without her signature. I don't think she'll find out about it right away. It was just a matter of getting documents for the house. They were kept in a safe deposit box at the same bank where Maisie worked, so I couldn't just go and pick them up while she was there. I called Gordon at the bank. I didn't remember his last name, and I'm not sure that he ever told me it, but after a short description of his appearance, I was connected to him. I asked if he could find something for me without putting himself in danger. Gordon replied that he would try. I needed to know the registration number of Stuart Marshall Hobbs' car, or at least the make and color. I also wanted to understand how innocent the girl who goes with Macy to the conference is. Gordon said he knew the woman in charge of company cars. He even had to talk to her in the morning when he was arranging payment for new tires for Macy. He didn't think it would be a problem and promised to get the information by tomorrow and then email it to me. As for the girl that Maisie was taking with her, she had already managed to get divorced once, although she was quite young. In the office, she was known as a desperate flirt and did not even hide the fact that she was going to the conference with certain intentions. I also asked Gordon to find out the room numbers where Macy and her lover will stay. Gordon said that numbers are being allocated at the last minute, but he will try to find out. He added that he had canceled appointments with Macy on Tuesday and Thursday, citing that Josephine had an ultrasound scheduled on Tuesday and they would need to return to the hospital on Thursday for the results. Sorry if this ruins your plans, he said, but I just can't take it anymore. I replied that everything was fine. He gave me his mobile number, and I immediately sent him a voice message so that he would save my contact too. Who would have thought that my wife's lover would soon become my friend? Later in the morning, I stopped by a couple of real estate agencies and made appointments for Thursday to get a home appraisal for a quick sale. Then I got into our savings and investments. There wasn't much money. I also checked the credit cards. Remotely, I was able to increase the credit limits on 3 of our shared cards, as well as one that was in Macy's name at her own bank. She rarely used this card due to the high interest rate, so it just sat in the dining room drawer where we kept our wallets and checkbook. Even though Maisie worked in a bank and I worked on machines all day, I was in charge of financial management, so I knew all the passwords. Then I went to the supermarket again. I bought bone and pork belly for soup and restocked the fridge with chocolate bars. Then I left the car at home and headed to the pub where I had a couple of excellent pints. I really enjoyed this day. The pub had free Wi-Fi, and I used it to order a laptop charger to use in the car. Going back and forth between home, the convention center, and my caravan, I knew it would be useful. At the same time, I went to the legal services website and chose an online divorce lawyer. They weren't the cheapest, but it would all go toward Macy's credit card, so I didn't care about the price. After that, I returned home and made a hearty vegetable soup, a light dinner, after the weight loss club weigh-in. I actually made 2 different soups. The first one was purely vegetable, tender and tasty. In the second one, I used the same base, but added protein powder, grated full-fat cheese, and butter. Just in case, I opened a bottle of wine and added a little vodka to quietly increase the strength. When Macy got home, I told her I was going to the caravan on Friday evening for the weekend and asked if she wanted to join me. "Sorry, honey," she replied, "but this weekend is our traditional quarterly meeting in Ferndale. I think I told you about this a couple of weeks ago." "In that case," I said, "I'll probably go to the caravan right after work on Friday, since you'll be having dinner at the hotel. Will you join me on Sunday?" "No," she replied. "There's no point in going there late in the morning and returning home after lunch, especially if I'm tired after a week of work." "Yeah," I thought, "you're going all out all weekend." "Okay," I said. "We, as usual, have a vacation planned for the first week of May, and there are less than 2 weeks left before it." She didn't answer, and I wondered if she was going to suggest breaking up before I did. I wondered if it would make me angry or hurt, but I realized it didn't matter anymore. I just wanted to end this farce called marriage as quickly as possible, in any way possible, preferably on my terms. But if it didn't work out, well, okay. The sooner I get everything ready to surpass her, the better. The weigh-in at the weight loss club on Monday evening went well. Yes, considering the beers I'd allowed myself during the week, I'd only lost a couple of pounds, but now I was only a few pounds away from my goal weight. Macy was angry. She had gained a couple of pounds and was at the top end of her tolerable range. Plus, she was clearly annoyed that Gavin didn't come, and this was atypical for him. Sweet Karen stepped on the scale and discovered that she had lost 1.5 pounds. She specifically came up to me to hug me and ask in a whisper how I was holding up. I assured her that I was fine and everything would work out in my favor. Maisie looked at both of us as if she was throwing lightning with her eyes, but she didn't say anything to me. During a quiet time at the reception, I sent Adrienne a message asking about Gavin. She called back and said that she decided to keep him under her thumb, and now he wouldn't go anywhere alone. She sounded very cheerful and not at all tense. I suggested that next time she come to the club with him, not that she really needed to lose weight, but perhaps she would be interested. She laughed and said she would think about it. Adrienne asked how Macy and I were doing. I told him in which direction our weights were moving, and we laughed together. Adrienne turned out to be just a wonderful girl, and it seemed like we were starting to become friends. In general, relationships are a strange thing, honestly. And then new people came in wanting to weigh in, and I was forced to hang up. My dear wife was clearly nervous when we got home. She tried to write to someone a couple of times when she thought I wasn't seeing, but I didn't hear any replies. Surely, back at the club, while I was sitting at the bar, she managed to send messages to someone. I smiled like a Cheshire cat and she looked like a purebred cat who had been given a bowl of soy milk. She drank a couple of glasses of fortified wine while the soup was heating up, and I opened myself a light beer. When I served the soup with a large slice of bread, I filled her glass to the top with wine. I was glad to notice that she ate it all without further ado. Apparently, she was hungry. This made me eat my own, healthier version of the same soup with even greater pleasure. The yogurt with fruit for dessert was also excellent. Full fat for her, low fat for me. I'm sure both options were delicious. And to top it all off, she finished the bottle of wine. I mentally noted that I would have to buy another case of this wine and probably a couple of bottles of vodka. The next day, Tuesday, Macy was working and suffered from a hangover in the morning and was not in the best mood. But a couple of chocolate bars after breakfast seemed to help her nausea a little. I left the house as if I was going to work before her, like always, and parked down the street to wait for her to drive by. Then I returned home and went through her closet, choosing casual clothes and a few other things she wore often. I sorted them by the stores where they were purchased and stuffed everything into bags, 2 bags for each brand. I went to the shopping center and started with Marks and Spencer, then looked into Next and went through other chain stores. I tried to find clothes of the same style and color, only a couple of sizes larger. It turned out differently because, as it turned out, women's collections in stores change almost every 2 weeks and men's collections every few years. But I bought everything I could, paying with a credit card. At home, I put the new clothes back into my wardrobe, remembering to cut off the size labels, and threw the old clothes into the Sally Ann charity box. I was in a very generous mood on Tuesday with Macy's money, of course. First, I booked and paid in advance for a fancy romantic dinner and a room at the best hotel in the area for one night for Adrian and her partner, all in a couple of weeks. The balance on Macy's card was almost unaffected. I called Adrian to tell her about it, and of course she was delighted with Macy's generous gift, although Macy herself was not aware of it. After all, the gift itself is important, and not the thought with which it was made. Adrian said she would have no problem placing the children at their mother's for the night. I replied that this was the least Macy could do for her. I asked if Adrian had a suitable dress for the occasion. She said she would find something suitable. I said that somehow would not do and suggested that she go on that shopping spree on Wednesday morning, just like in the movie Pretty Woman. She laughed and said, "I agree." We agreed that I would pick her up after 9 when she sent the children to school. Before ending the conversation, I recognized her favorite hair salon and told her to leave Saturday afternoon free, the eve of a romantic night with her lost husband. After finishing my conversation with Adrian, I noticed that I had a missed call from Gordon. In the voice message, he said that he had sent a couple of emails and asked to look at the laptop. I did so and found that Gordon did a great job. He confided in several trusted colleagues, telling them that, together with Mrs. Cox's husband, he was going to expose the quarterly sex scandal at the bank. Friends were inspired and helped him put together a complete dossier of prospective couples for the weekend. He attached to the letter photographs from the personal files of the employees and the license plates of their cars, and also a list of board members who, according to Gordon, might be interested in this story with their email addresses. I would kiss him, but my wife has already received her share of kisses from him, so perhaps I will kiss Josephine and she will give it to him. I called Gordon at work. "Can you talk?" I asked. "It's lunchtime, most of them are gone, so let's go." "Thanks for the information, and keep in mind that everything will blow up on Monday." "I thought so," Gordon grinned. "Need some help this weekend?" "No, I can handle it. You just need to buy some photos and security equipment. You can rent everything in the city. I'm into photography, and I have a discount card for the store there. If you go now, I'll help you pick everything up." I knew which camera shop we were talking about. I had already bought several cameras there before. However, I bought my last couple of cameras online to save money, but they weren't exactly what I wanted. I learned, if you don't understand technology enough, it's better to turn to specialists. "I'm about 20 minutes from the center," I said to Gordon. Meet me at that shop at the top of the high street, right? Yes, he's the one, Gordon answered. See you in 20 minutes. Before it slipped my mind, I made an appointment for Adrian at her hair salon. Macy's credit card paid for everything. Haircut, color, manicure, facial, and makeup just hours before her big date with her errant husband. I did this not for his sake, although he will get all the bonuses, but for the sake of her, my lovely wife, who will now be dazzlingly beautiful at dinner. When we choose the right lingerie for the dress, she will look simply amazing. I wanted her to be so gorgeous that it would give her confidence, make all the men in the restaurant look around, and Gavin understand that he risks losing his wife if he doesn't come to his senses and start being responsible for his family. I quickly texted Adrian with the appointment time. A heart came in response, the first time in my life for me. I was about 5 minutes late to the photo store, and Gordon was already busy studying the selection of rentals. How much do you expect? He asked with a grin as I walked into the soft ringing of the doorbell. I want the best, so the sky's the limit. Macy pays. I see. Gordon spread his hands over the equipment laid out on the counter. Then you'll need all of this, buddy. Wow, I said, wondering if the sky was too high. I was already maxed out on one joint credit card, and I suspected that shopping with Adrian would completely drain the other one. And how much will the whole set cost? £220 for a week's rent, including lenses and extra memory cards. I made an agreement with Max, the owner of the store. Max stood behind the counter, looking like a wrestler with visible tattoos on his forehead, neck, and arms. It looks like he has tattoos all over his body. He smiled, showing a mouth reminiscent of an ivory graveyard, stretched out his hand and almost crushed my palm, and I have rather big hands. I use them to unscrew wheel nuts. It happened to me too, Max muttered. I caught a bitch. I still make money from her video, which I posted online, so if you need help, please contact me. I think I can handle it, I grinned, but I'll keep it in mind if something goes wrong. That's good, Max rumbled through yellowish fangs. Now, let's go, I have something else for you. We walked down the counter to a stand with the inscription, Home Security. Max waved his hand invitingly and pulled out a medium-sized box from under the counter. He pointed to the photograph upside down and began to explain. 3 mini cameras with a small pan and tilt radius, with built-in autofocus lenses that take good pictures even in low light. They react to movement. They turn on when someone enters the room and turn off if there is no activity for a while. Any fool can plug them into a lighting circuit for power or use a battery pack with this transmitter. The cameras themselves do not record on film. They stream video directly to your computer's hard drive. What about Mac? I don't have a PC. Max gave me a look that could melt glass, put the box back, and, after rummaging for a minute, pulled out another one very similar. As I said, the signal goes to Mac. You can remotely rotate the camera, change focus, zoom. With your Airport Extreme, the range will be somewhere around 150-200 meters if concrete walls don't get in the way. These things sell out quickly. Take it, try it. Price, £299 or £249 with Gordon's discount. Thanks to Macy's credit history, Max was not embarrassed that the card was in her name. Have you ever heard a grizzly bear laugh? It sounds funny, but at the same time very scary. We left the store, bent over under the weight of the photographic equipment, and I figured it was time for me to explain my plans to Gordon. How about we grab some coffee before you go back to the bank? I suggested. Certainly. I took the afternoon off, remember? We went to a small cafe off the high street. It was quiet. I was hungry, so I had a baked potato with cheese and beans. Gordon wisely said that he had grabbed sandwiches from home. Remember when I said that the S will crash into the F? To him. So, when I send out the pictures I took to everyone at the bank's headquarters and tell them what happens at these quarterly meetings, Josie, your wife, will realize that you were there. And she is a smart and beautiful woman, you know. Uh-huh, Gordon grinned sadly. I'm already out of favor because she already knows everything. Does she know? Where? Yes, I told her everything myself on Sunday afternoon, right after lunch, when we finished washing the dishes and Kylie was put to bed. Josie wanted to understand who you are and why you're helping me with the renovations. I said your wife is my boss, and she is a controlling, unfaithful bitch who preys on married men and blackmails them into getting whatever she wants. Josie was horrified when I added that I myself had become her lover. He drained his cup. And then Josie gave me a good slap in the face, he admitted, involuntarily rubbing his left cheek. She screamed, beat her chest with her fists, and sobbed, and I along with her. When she got tired of beating me, she started shouting curses and woke up Kylie. We went to her together, I took her in my arms and calmed her down, and Josie kissed her, and we all hugged. Gordon raised his head from the coffee cup in which he was looking at the remains in fascination. I was silent, and he continued. She asked why you and I get along, given this whole situation. I replied that we were both victims. Mrs. Cox is cheating on you, blackmailing me, and she has two other lovers that we know about. You and I want to expose her. I told Josie I'll most likely help you with your revenge this weekend. I think she was impressed that you were humorous about it. Yes, now I sleep on the couch, but at least not on the street. You should go home and not waste time here with me, Gordon. Save your marriage, wife, and children. I stopped having heart-to-heart conversations with Macy a long time ago, and there's nothing we can do to save it. Apparently, she had needs that I could not even imagine. Hell, if I had known she needed to make love 4 times a week, I would have been able to handle it. I thought she didn't need it. Apparently, I was right. She didn't need me and probably still doesn't need me. Josie and I have been together since childhood. She was the girl next door. She moved to our street at the age of 10. We went to the same school. It seems I was the only one with her. I love only her. I can't imagine anyone else. I don't want to lose her and my family. Then start acting. Come back. Tell her that you love only her, that no one is more important to you, that you have a daughter, Kylie, and there will be another child. And don't stop talking until she allows you to hug her again. Talk to her. It was the lack of communication that ruined my marriage to Macy. Tell Josie that she is the most beautiful woman in the world, and you definitely don't want anyone else. You will bring it to her with your persistence, and maybe everything will work out. What are you doing this evening? Gordon asked, putting on his coat. We have a photography club meeting at school at 7 in the evening, and I have an idea on how to help you this weekend. I'm free, I answered. Maisie has a long working day at the bank, and I think she will be late, although without you. Maybe he'll even return home earlier than usual. I was going to make her dinner. Chops and gravy, mashed potatoes and peas, and a warm chicken salad for myself. Then I'll pick you up at 18:45. If you bring me back later, Macy might notice your car and get suspicious. In theory, we don't know each other at all. Maybe I'd better pick you up at 6:30 p.m. so Josie knows you're with me. Then come at 17:30 and have dinner with us. It's coming. I'll just cook Macy's dinner and leave it in the microwave. We said goodbye. Gordon went back to the bank to get his car, and I went back to the van and went home to make dinner. I wrote Macy a note saying I'll be back by 10. Then he went to dinner with Josie and Gordon. Josie greeted me with a warm hug and told me how sorry she was that Gordon got involved in this, while throwing a displeased look at her husband. I tried to explain that Macy is a real shark. Once you grab her, you can't tear her off. I told him that Gordon was being brave and trying to help me expose her. He blamed everything on his wife and announced that she would answer for everything she had done. As we left for the meeting, Josie kissed us both on the cheek and wished us luck, which Gordon took as a good sign. Maybe I went overboard by calling her beautiful and lightly squeezing her butt, but I'm not lying, she really is beautiful, and I wanted to show Gordon how to praise his wife. He, however, was not offended. He was happy at least with such a kiss after the 3-day Cold War, hoping that everything would work out for him. Needless to say, the meeting turned out to be unusually lively. Max managed to stir up the interest of the early visitors in advance, telling them that some kind of photo expedition was planned, but he did not expect that I would appear there myself. Having noticed me, he, as the chairman of the club, quickly started the meeting, introduced me as a guest speaker, and in record time went over the formal issues. Max then asked me to take the podium. I am usually terribly afraid to speak in front of an audience of more than 2 or 3 people. At my own wedding, I was almost in a daze, although alcohol may have played a role there. But now I had a goal. I intended to be sober and savor every moment along the path to divorce. About 30 enthusiastic photographers listened to me very carefully. I didn't name names, I didn't turn on anyone, but everyone fell silent when I started talking about the upcoming revelation at the hotel over the weekend. I was awarded a standing ovation, and then comments from the audience followed. For example, why not expose all the couples? There are about 15 of them, and not just my wife. In general, they decided that it would look more noble and would be more interesting to the public, because what I needed was wide publicity, and so that the bank could not hush everything up. If the bank tries to hide this, its reputation may be at risk. But for such a large-scale plan, it would be necessary to involve everyone from the photo club, take pictures, record the time, record the identities of the participants. This could become a common project and a legend of the club for many years, and the club would gain some fame. Max suggested taking all the equipment out of his store, setting up a surveillance headquarters, and, as a condition, posting everything on his website. The club would receive a portion of the profits in the form of an anonymous donation, and I would receive royalties for organizing and paying for everything. On the spot, using Macy's credit card, I booked one luxury room and 3 or 4 standard ones at the hotel from Thursday to Sunday under the guise of a photo conference. Right there at school, I went online from my laptop via Wi-Fi and made a reservation until Sunday. The hotel was almost empty, so the price on weekdays was minimal. Operation Flash has begun. On Wednesday, the shops were open part-time, so Max and I agreed to go to the hotel immediately after my visit to the clinic for a check. Max was going to reconnoiter the situation and negotiate access to the rooms. It turned out that he had helped private investigators install cameras before. "What did you think? I caught my wife myself?" said Max. "That's how I got the video material for the site." "Well, no question. Let him post my video too. This will save me from having to create my own website, and Max already has all the referral links set up." For dinner on Tuesday, Macy ate mashed potatoes with a double portion of mozzarella, an excellent source of saturated fat, drank half a bottle of wine, which I topped with vodka, and this was another achievement. There were only 3 chocolate bars left in the refrigerator, so I brought the number up to a dozen from my secret supply and again splashed some vodka into the rest of the wine. I left her a note that since she had a workout at the gym on Wednesday, and on Thursday she would be late at work again, and then leave for a meeting for the weekend, I would take advantage of the fact that there were few orders in the workshop and go to the sea to prepare a caravan. She still thought that I hadn't finished my work there. On Wednesday morning, I slipped out of the house early, leaving Maisie with a bowl of oatmeal in the microwave. At the same time, the oatmeal was cooked in what she thought was low-fat milk, although in fact I deliberately poured fatty Jersey milk into a bottle of low-fat milk. I then arrived at Adrienne's in time for morning coffee before her blue-haired mom picked up the younger kids. Adrienne did not introduce me to her. She already looked at me askance, as if from down on me. I couldn't resist and said, "Thank you, Mom, for looking after the kids. Otherwise, I've been waiting all week to see how I can take your daughter to a gorgeous party. Ha ha, you know." He smacked his lips and winked, which almost knocked the old woman's dentures out of her mouth. When Adrienne came down dressed, I apologized, but she said that there was no point. Everything in their family was now upside down, because the night before she kicked Gavin out. It turns out that as soon as she told her relatives that Gavin went to the left, her younger sister Laura burst into tears and said, "It's not my fault," and eventually admitted that she had an affair with him. It turns out that my husband sleeps with my wife 2 or 3 times a week, and at the same time periodically sleeps with his own sister-in-law. This is how relationships can be. how confused people can get for the sake of dubious sexual happiness. Shopping. I usually hate shopping with my wife. It's a waste of time. But with Adrian, everything was different. Sheer pleasure. She tried on half a dozen outfits and looked amazing in each one. If it were Macy, I probably wouldn't let her out of the house in such dresses. It's too provocative. And on Adrian, it looked elegant, feminine, sexy, but not vulgar. If Macy's credit card had been enough, I would have bought all 6. In the end, I convinced her to take 2 dresses and a pair of matching shoes and a handbag for each. Her dazzling smile was worth every penny I spent. We laughed over morning coffee, and I understood. If I had not still loved my bitchy wife, I would probably have fallen head over heels in love with Adrian. But one thing I needed was to reunite Gavin with her, while putting her in a stronger position. I talked about the upcoming reveal over the weekend and mentioned that the local photography club was involved. She laughed and asked, "What do you think I worked for before I started staying at home with the children?" I began to list. Oh, a swimsuit model, a flight attendant, a Las Vegas showgirl, the face of Christian Dior. Curling my fingers, and she laughed. "No, stupid," she interrupted. "I was a video editor on TV. I edited mainly news. I still do this for home filming. I have the latest software on my laptop. And in light of the current pause in family life, I can help you on the weekend for free." I clarified that almost everything is on a PC, and I personally have a Mac. Isn't that a problem? She confidently answered that everything could be downloaded to her MacBook, mounted there, and uploaded to CD and DVD. "It's coming." I was delighted and gave her the coordinates of the hotel and conference center. Then we visited a lingerie store. She offered to show everything directly to herself, but I was afraid of such a temptation. We were both already so on the same wavelength that we calmly managed without this defile. Well, Macy's credit card bought 2 excellent sets of underwear. After the tests, I called Max, and we went to the hotel in 2 cars. I checked him into a suite and took myself to a simpler room from the pre-booked ones. On Thursday morning, I got up early and returned home, or rather, I almost didn't get home. I waited for Maisie down the street to make sure she was actually leaving for work. She left about half an hour later than usual. Apparently, she was lazy, or maybe she had another hangover. After she left, I returned and waited for the real estate agents. The first agent gave an estimate of £260,000 for a quick sale, the second 270. They said that the real price, taking into account the urgency, is about 250,000, and if you wait a few months, you can ask for 290. I instructed both to quote from 250,000, but without a "for sale" sign outside the house. I just didn't want the price to be too high, otherwise Macy could get over 120,000 for her share. I already had thoughts on how to adjust the deal so that she would get less. Smiling, I thought of several ideas. Having finished with the agents, I carefully locked the house, leaving everything as it was, even the dirty plates from breakfast. True, I opened 2 bottles of wine in advance, poured a glass out of each and added vodka. I'll have to replenish these supplies all the time. Then he returned to the convention center. Max had already reached an agreement with the cleaning staff and received universal keys to the rooms. He seemed quite charming in daylight, at least for ladies of a certain age. Using the list from the bank that Gordon gave, Max found out from the staff which rooms were reserved for each guest. He had already placed all the cameras in the luxury and standard rooms where bank employees were expected to be accommodated. In the Marshall Hobbs suite, I installed the Mac version for me personally. He tested the rest of the kits on the PC. Everything worked flawlessly. He demanded that I also test the Mac system. It worked perfectly, and Max even admitted that the graphics were a little better. After that, Max went to his store. His assistant opened early in the morning, and Max needed to check if everything was in order there. I have a free Thursday. I had a leisurely lunch and then walked around the convention center, examining the layout of the rooms and the evacuation plan in case of fire. We were planning to make a false alarm on Friday evening. I also looked at where the security cameras where there were almost none and paid attention to the locations of the fire alarms. Then I rented a car nearby and drove to the bank office where Maisie works to see when she would come out. I saw her car in the parking lot. Around 7 in the evening, she went out alone, and the lights in the building went out. I rushed to my rental car and followed her. She drove to our area, then stopped in the city center near a decent restaurant and went inside. I didn't want to go to the window and risk being seen, so I just waited in the car. About an hour and a half later, she left alone and headed home. I returned to the convention center and went to bed after eating a late dinner. On Friday morning, Adrienne called saying her tests were negative and the test wouldn't be available for another 3 months. I clarified that the letter came in an opaque envelope with no indication of what service it was, which meant Macy wouldn't know what it was. But she had to wait until Maisie left for work and came home early. Late Friday afternoon, I sat in the lobby of the convention center, hiding behind huge newspapers, and watched people arrive, get out of their cars, and register. I compared them with the photos and names on the list. At about 7 in the evening, Macy arrived alone and checked in. She didn't even look at me. After another half hour, Marshall Hobbs appeared. Before he arrived, several members of the photography club arrived, including Gordon. I helped them check in, trying to stay out of Macy's sight. Fortunately, I didn't know almost anyone from this bank, since I attended mostly local events rather than regional ones. Gordon and I went up to my room, and while he was unpacking a couple of his things, I asked if he had time to get checked. Gordon said that the result came today and everything is clear, only the test takes longer. We ordered dinner to our room and, while we ate, turned on the cameras and watched the first filming. The content turned out to be very interesting. Even before dinner, some couples managed to be photographed, and Max gladly uploaded it all to his website. Macy and Marshall Hobbs changed their clothes separately. I suspected that perhaps their ardor had faded. But in the bar and restaurant, bank workers gathered in pairs, mostly without hiding their relationships. Photographers from the club continued to shoot quietly, collecting both photos and videos. Adrienne called and said that she had already arrived and stood in the parking lot. She had a video camera and a laptop. I took her to the room where she was supposed to spend the night with a couple of people from the club, left her things there, and then we proceeded to Max's room, the same suite next to the Marshall Hobbs room. We used the back staircase so as not to cross paths with anyone in the corridors. I was sure that Marshall Hobbs did not know me by sight, and Adrienne, moreover, had nothing to do with the bank. The risk was minimal. Perhaps we could have stumbled upon Macy if she had gone to her lover at that very moment, but we were lucky we didn't meet her. Club members took turns looking into Max's room to leak photos and videos. Adrienne began to edit short videos and individual frames into single stories filmed before dinner. Max uploaded ready-made clips and advertising trailers to his website and also connected referral links from other sites. It was very interesting to see how it all works. The new products aroused great interest on the internet. Max showed me the counter of clicks and incoming money. After all, the internet never sleeps, and everything was on the site, including in dollars. Max's smile, revealing his graveyard of fangs, was wider than ever, so the operation could be considered officially launched. After cocktails, dinner, and dancing, everyone began to return to their rooms in pairs, and sometimes in more complex configurations. For some, the couple even changed, which caused surprised and even funny comments at our headquarters. Max just rubbed his hands like Fagin, because on his site there were different categories, and some videos fit into several at once. As expected, Macy and Marshall Hobbs went to his suite after dinner, and alas, there was nothing I could do to stop it. Adrienne sat at my Mac and carefully monitored the moment as Max said, completion. And at exactly that moment, Barry, one of ours, accidentally turned on the fire alarm in the back corridor, where there were no hotel cameras. All our photographers and cameramen were ready to film how people rushed out of their rooms in a variety of forms, often half-dressed, but did not have time to hide and did not notice that they were being filmed. panic and desire for safety left them no time to think about cameras. In addition, it was pouring rain, and everyone crowded around the rally points, wet and confused. Gordon and I slipped out the back stairs, walked down the street to the bus stop, which I had marked in advance so that our acquaintances would not notice us, and then, when the rain had died down a little, we snuck into the parking lot. Gordon took a series of photographs of my wife and her lover standing in the rain, hugging each other, waiting for the firemen to allow them to return to the building. When the firefighters checked everything and declared that everything was in order, people began to enter the hotel, and we again got a bunch of train pictures of who was returning to their rooms with whom. Analysis of the video stream from our hidden cameras showed that for some, the romantic fervor dried up after the alarm, while for others, on the contrary, the appetite came while eating, and they continued to have fun, which gave Adrian new material for editing and Max for uploading to the site. My Mac was literally smoking from the load because my wife, together with her two-family lover, was supplying more and more new footage, which only increased Max's income. We pulled the second fire alarm at about 3 o'clock in the morning, which a group of camera operators had already expected, and again received a lot of film materials and photos confirming that barely dressed couples and even entire groups were running out into the street. As before, Gordon and I tried to retreat, while the other guests shivered in the corners of the parking lot. After everyone returned to the building, we took turns dozing until dawn. In the morning, with good lighting, we took some amazing shots. Some couples never stopped active work during the day, although in theory, at this time, bankers should have been present at conferences and training. Ariana was able to get a few hours of sleep in the second half of the night, while Max rushed off to open his workshop with an assistant to cope with the usual Saturday influx of customers. When Ariana woke up, I asked who was looking after the children, and she smiled, answering that it was Gavin, who was staying at their house. He didn't have a car because Ariana had borrowed the family car to come to the hotel. Ariana cheerfully added that her parents now also keep her sister under strict supervision. "What does Gavin know about this booby-trapped operation we're running?" I asked. "Nothing," she answered. "He thinks I'm spending the weekend with my friends, that's what I told him. He also knows that when I return on Sunday morning, he will have to get the hell out of my house." Ariana laughed and added, "By now, Mom has probably already told him about the rude stranger who came to see us on Thursday, and now both Mom and Gavin are very interested in you. Gavin asked me if I was dating any men, and he got really angry when I said that there really was such a possibility." "And what did he answer to this volley of yours?" "Gavin directly asked if I would sleep with someone, trying to hide my jealousy. I replied that maybe I'll take a little nap, but I don't plan on sleeping much." We laughed together at this joke at Gavin's expense. Then we talked about her marriage and what she wants for the future of her family. She has 3 small children with Gavin. She still wants Gavin to return to the family, but on her terms, so that he stays within limits. Gavin seemed sincere in his promise to do everything to put the past behind him and become the family man Ariana wants him to be. But then he said this even before his affair with Ariana's sister was revealed. This means that he will have to try hard and prove his honesty if Ariana allows him to return again. Ariana asked what my plans were after Macy was caught. I told her, "I quit my job and am in the process of selling off all our joint assets. Of course, everything will have to be divided between Macy and me, and then I think I'll go abroad, most likely to France, where it's warm and sunny." Ariana continued to edit the next videos, which were constantly coming from the film Cruise. She generated separate files for each changing pair and simultaneously sent them to Max so that he could process them in his own direction. Gordon compiled tables and printed them out on a board where we could note the presence of photographs, films, and complete dossiers on each person, with links to their entertainment partners. Gordon established smooth and efficient work. In fact, all I could do was watch from the sidelines. Max returned on Saturday evening and began downloading the files that Ariana had prepared. Judging by the way they exchanged pleasantries, They seemed to have discussed payment for work she had already done and the prospects for further cooperation. Apparently, this industry is a lucrative business. Saturday night was not much different from Friday, although we no longer pulled the fire alarm. Each hotel room occupied by bank staff was turned into a separate filming pavilion for the grand filming. No one, however, even thought about reporting it to the Guinness Book of Records. Mr. MX and Mrs. Cox have outdone themselves, surpassing Friday entertainment, and their exploits could become the most sought-after items in an internet video auction. They produced 3 gorgeous long videos, as I was informed. I couldn't watch it myself, it was still disgusting. But Ariana, having assembled all these materials, began to print CDs and DVDs for each couple, in order to then distribute them to the spouses of the traders and the management of the bank. Most of the photographers quietly went home late Saturday afternoon and Sunday night, including Gordon, who received my sincere thanks for his excellent organization of this colossal operation. In the end, it was thanks to him that everything went so smoothly. I wished him all the best with his wife Josephine and promised that I would definitely see them at Kylie's birthday, if not before. Yawning loudly and pouring black coffee into myself, as if they were about to stop making it, I stuffed the discs into pre-addressed envelopes with bubble protection for further mailing. Thus ended Operation Strike, and we eagerly awaited the inevitable fallout when these packages were received by the guilty employees' partners and their bosses on Tuesday. We also prepared a selection of shots showing couples leaving hotel rooms in bathrobes and more on that Friday night, and uploaded this selection of slides to the bank's website. I broke into their site on Sunday morning using the passwords Gordon had obtained over the course of the week and posted the slideshow as a splash page on the home page. Thus ended the operation, which I called Operation What a Picture. Ariana announced that filming was finished for her part. She hugged Max, now her business partner, and prepared a separate hug for me, asking if I was okay with my conscience about what we had done. Of course, I said that everything was fine, although I understood that this was far from the case, and having slapped her playfully on the butt, I wished her luck in the upcoming event next Saturday. She admitted that she had completely forgotten about it, and now decided that she would let Gavin sleep on the couch for the rest of the week and see how it went on Saturday night. She looked forward to this evening with a positive attitude as the beginning of the restoration of her family and marriage, and I considered the coming week to be the time of complete and final collapse of my own marriage. In the morning, the bank employees began to slowly leave. Max, using a universal key, entered the rooms from which the residents had moved out and removed their cameras. While he was doing this, we called him on his mobile and told him who exactly was paying at the reception at the moment. Thus, he was able to quickly assemble all the cameras. When we were done and checked out ourselves, I paid the rest of the food, drink, and phone bills using our last joint credit card. Before heading home, I dropped a stack of bulky DVD and CD envelopes into several different mailboxes nearby. On the way home, Macy called me. I picked up the phone. She reported that she returned home, sorted the mail, and found a notice from the bank about increasing the credit limit on her card without her knowledge. "Yes, it's me, darling," I answered. To be honest, I didn't expect the notification to come so early. I didn't want to ruin the surprise for you. But why raise the limit? We always pay off all credit card debt at the end of the month. See, it was supposed to be a surprise, baby. I wanted to use one of our cards, which we rarely use so as not to arouse suspicion, and it had to be a special purchase that would be a surprise for you for life. Oh, she said in the most excited tone I've heard from her lately, although it was nowhere near the excitement that Ariana told me she regularly experienced on the weekends. I wonder if I can guess what this surprise is. If you guess, honey, then it's no longer a surprise, right? If I can't guess, will you give me at least a hint? That's all I can say, darling. I almost choked when I said that last word. This is that you will get everything you deserve for 20 years of being my only real wife. I'm on my way home now, baby. See you soon, she answered. I'm so tired after our conference that I'm going to take a long soak in the bath and then sleep all day. Shall we have dinner later? No problem. I'll try not to make any noise when I arrive so as not to disturb your rest. On the way back, I stopped by Gordon and Josephine and gave him the disc that Ariana had prepared. This was a compilation of key episodes illustrating what typically happens at these quarterly workshops. Josephine sympathized with me about the video footage of Macy. She said Gordon told her, "I couldn't bring myself to look at the footage. I admitted that I didn't have the courage, and she hugged me tightly, telling me that she thought I was the bravest person she knew, and that she and Gordon were serious about trying to continue to strengthen their marriage. I said I admired them and hoped they would do well. I promised that I wouldn't disappear and would definitely come to Kylie's birthday before I left the country to live in France. When I returned home, the house was quiet, and Macy was fast asleep. And yet I had evidence that in recent days she had been acting very unangelically. Among the mail, an unopened letter from a family planning clinic was found. According to the results, I was completely fine. No infection was found in me. I hid the letter. I put dinner in the oven. I baked a leg of lamb and potatoes, some in goose fat, some in fat-free spray, threw some vegetables into the oven, and steamed some. I prepared two versions of gravy, one made from fat after roasting the meat, and the second completely fat-free. I put everything on plates, covered it, and left it so I could microwave it when Macy woke up. I noticed that the entire stock of wine in the refrigerator had disappeared, but I just had a box of wine and a couple of bottles of vodka left in my car. I stocked our pantry and put 3 bottles in the refrigerator after unscrewing the caps and draining a generous glass from each to top up with vodka. She woke up in the late afternoon, took a shower, and I heated up dinner, offering her the full option with yogurt and fruit for dessert. She finished off the first bottle of wine with ease and uncorked the second. I drank non-alcoholic beer. It's disgusting. Then I took a shower and went to bed. I was both physically and mentally exhausted, and difficult conversations lay ahead of me. Early on the morning of this Black Monday, I sneaked out of the house while Macy was still sleeping. I went to our trailer home, aired it out, put things in order, and bought groceries for a week or two at a local store. I took more wine and chocolate, as well as a couple of large bags of chips and corn snacks. The weather was wonderful, warm, sunny, and the trailer park was empty. It was a weekday after a rainy weekend. A real calm before the storm. By Friday, everything here will be filled with vacationers for the May holidays. Many will stay for the entire next week. I expected Macy to call. It happened at the 11th hour when I was sitting on the warm porch with a cup of coffee. Seeing her number, I cheerfully picked up the phone. "Hello, honey. What should I do for you on this beautiful day?" She paused. I think she intended to scold me and accuse me of ruining her life, but my joyful tone confused her a little. The thought probably flashed through her mind. If I did this, then our marriage is dead, and I would hardly be talking so casually. "I was wondering if you're at work today," she said, as if thinking about every word, while plans were spinning in her head on how to get out of the impending disaster. "No, honey, I'm in the trailer," I answered in the same cheerful tone. "I'm so used to coming here on the weekends, but work is still quiet, so I took a couple of days off. I wanted to call you later and warn you that you will be eating without me for a couple of days. By the way, why did you call? There is a real nightmare going on at the bank, a large-scale audit at the district level, and the atmosphere is simply unbearable. I want to take the whole week off and come to the trailer. I'm so upset that I can't even drive myself. Maybe you'll come get me, honey. You know, dear, I would rush to you like an arrow, but the atmosphere here is such a relaxing one that I already managed to drink several cold beers and one long chilled Lafroig. I think I'll only be sober in the evening, my love. Then come in the morning around 11. Will you pick me up?" I understood that mail usually arrived around 10 in the morning. Most likely, she will be able to intercept the voluminous envelope that I anonymously sent to myself, open it, and hide it from me. "No problem, honey," I agreed. "This way I can avoid the morning traffic jams. Sorry that you have such a mess at work, but big banks constantly carry out all sorts of checks. Don't worry, rest, get some sleep, and I'll pick you up tomorrow. Maybe I'll also be able to get a whole week off, then we'll stay here for 2 weeks. It's so nice here now. Let's go for romantic walks along the shore, along the cliffs. Damn, I thought, I'd better push her off these rocks, but it's not game over yet. Sounds tempting, honey, she cooed, trying to sound seductive, but it sounded false. I'm already fed up with work taking up all my time and energy. Maybe I'll quit altogether. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's meeting. Love you. Yes, of course, I thought. I called Gordon to find out what was going on at the bank. Hi, Gordon. So, has the shit hit the fan? I laughed. Absolutely, he responded. Mrs. Cox and Afa, the young girl who went to the seminar, were suspended from work, and at about 10:30, they were taken out of the bank by security. The keys to Mrs. Cox's BMW were apparently also taken. It was a company car. The site was cut off at about 9:10, when all the bank employees were already staring at that same home page. There was nothing the ed department could do except shut down the server. You did a great job, Jerry. The photos turned out great. The guys from the photo club are all professionals, and the way Ariana skillfully edited the video was fantastic. I will definitely pass on your praise to her, I answered. Have you personally had any problems at work? We discussed in advance what Gordon would risk in the event of such a scandal, but he still decided to help. And I was worried about this because he has a wife, a daughter, Kylie, and another child on the way. I was immediately called to the authorities. There were 2 strangers there from the head office. They are interrogating everyone who has ever participated in such conferences. I laid it all out from the start. It seems that someone was already asked before me, and they twisted and turned, but I decided to tell the truth. He told me that Mrs. Cox attacked me back in January at the first such conference, and then blackmailed me into having sex with her. I admitted that I told my wife everything a couple of weeks ago, and at the last seminar I did not give in to her harassment. He added that Afa had long boasted to everyone in the department that she would go to this conference like a holiday. In general, there were rumors throughout the entire team. He also admitted that my friends from the photo club and I took photographs. He said that initially it was I who wanted to expose Mrs. Cox and other managers who dragged their subordinates into this. Then I pulled the CD out of my pocket and warned that tomorrow in the mail everyone, and I highlighted this word everyone, will receive these recordings on discs there in both CD and DVD formats, so that husbands, wives, lovers, and friends' colleagues could see everything. And he added that now I'm returning to my workplace to save who else can be saved, and they should keep this in mind, because the last person they want to make an enemy is me. Damn, Gord, I would pay to see this scene in person, I exclaimed. You can look. Max and I were setting up cameras and microphones in the conference rooms and Mrs. Cox's office yesterday afternoon, Sunday. I have a broadcast on my PC that is uploaded to a hidden folder on Max's website. You're already connected to it, just add bank to the address and enter the password Jerry01 only with a capital G, not a J. Max set it up that way. Got it, I'll definitely come in and take a look, I promised. About an hour after I left their office, Mrs. Cox and Ifa were already escorted out by security without being allowed to take anything. Your wife left with her head held high, and the girl was simply hysterical. Well, after a while, I was called into the office again and told that they would send a new manager and deputy. They asked me to help them get up to speed. It turned out that our senior deputy, who is now in Tenerife, was also seen at such a conference in the past. Someone from another department turned him in. In a word, we still have a couple of weeks of fun here, and then, probably, they will kick me out too. I felt sorry for Gordon. In fact, it is not his fault, and if he had not agreed to help me, I would never have been able to bring this to the end. It's a pity, of course, but hang in there and call me if anything happens, I said. Thank you. Without you, I would still be hooked on her and might have lost Josephine forever. How are you and your wife doing? Is everything all right? I think so, I hope so. Thank you for asking, he replied. I'm glad for you. Say hi to Joe and Kylie, bye. I'll pass it on. Let's call you. Call me tomorrow and I'll tell you something else. I went to Max's website and typed bank at the end of the URL and entered the specified password. I watched as Macy was led in for interrogation. There was also sound. Employees from the head office gave her a disc to listen to. You could hear the ground disappearing from under her feet as she asked again and again if I had set it all up. She was told that the recording came from inside the bank. She immediately thought of Gordon and covered him with such words that my ears turned red. For the first time since we met and got married, I suddenly saw clearly how disgusting and evil she could be. And for the first time since the beginning of my entire retribution operation, I did not feel a drop of pity or regret. She deserved it, and I finally decided to finish the job. Feeling a little depressed, I decided to call Ariana to relieve myself. The thought came to my mind, Lord, how everything has turned upside down in my life. The only people with whom I have a normal connection are the wives of my wife's lovers and Gordon, but now I want to call one of them to cheer me up. Perhaps I should also dial Mrs. Marshall Hobbs to get the full package. Hi, Jer, Ariana responded joyfully when she saw my number. How are you holding up there, dear? In general, it's normal, although there's confusion in my soul. I'm glad that this whole operation is over, and at the same time I feel empty from the understanding that my marriage is over, and all 20 years are down the drain. Okay, enough about me. How are you? How was Gavin doing over the weekend? Fine, as far as I know. The children were delighted that he was with them again. He slept in my bed while I was at the hotel, but last week he slept on the couch. I told him everything, and he was shocked. He really didn't suspect that your wife was having such a blast, and he called her unprintable words when he saw the video. He said that Maisie assured him that you were not capable of intimacy, and that you didn't mind that she found solace on the side as long as you didn't find out anything. Gavin thought he was her only lover and was furious when he found out about ex and also Gordon, who hung out on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I giggled, but not with much joy. The cheater, who was also impaled, looked like karma and did not evoke a drop of sympathy in me. And Gavin himself is in no position to lecture anyone, if you remember about your sister. I noticed, right? But they both admitted that it was an isolated incident at my parents' Christmas. We were all drunk at the time, and my sister woke up with a terrified hangover to find Gavin in her bed. It turns out that at night he got up to go to the toilet and returned to someone else's room. Maybe they didn't sleep together at all, I suggested. We definitely hadn't slept before, but we both woke up excited and had sex. Then they swore that they would never do it again. Gavin agreed with pleasure, but Laura felt guilty all this time and confessed after her mother began to suspect Gavin of constant infidelity. I hope everything works out for you somehow. Good luck. I'm calling to see if you're okay. Okay, it's time for me to do a bunch of other things. Bye. Bye, darling, don't hang your nose. It's good that she said nose, otherwise it would have blown my mind. I spent the rest of the day preparing meals for the week so that they would be easier to reheat later. I added butter, whey, olive oil, and salt everywhere, putting it on a diet. I'd rather get fat than go crazy. True, I ran into a local losing weight group. They met on Monday in a neighboring town about 10 kilometers away. And despite the stress, over the past week, I managed to lose another 2.3 kilograms and even exceeded my goal weight by half a kilo. I was given the official staying at target weight status to polite, if slightly incomprehensible, applause. It was a shame that Emma and Karen, as well as all my friends from the weight loss club in my city, could not share this joy. The next day, I picked up Macy at our house. She was already prepared, stood by the window, and waited. She didn't even invite me into the house. As soon as I came out, she pounced on me, started kissing me, groping me, as if she had gone crazy. I said I wanted to go in and turn off the appliances, check my email, and take food out of the refrigerator. Everything has already been done, she snapped. I muttered that I needed to make sure no important correspondence was missed. Everything that came is trash, she said. I also wanted to check if all appliances were turned off, except the refrigerator and freezer. Yes, it's done, everything's done, she repeated impatiently. By this point, she had stopped acting like a cutie and started tapping her foot in impatience. Well, I threw her luggage into the van along with a bag of cooler and fruit. I note that the wine was no longer there apparently. She finishes it off on Sunday and Monday. It's okay, I still have enough in the trailer. We stopped for lunch on the way, and she asked for a gin and tonic. I gave her a triple. I asked if she went to the weigh-in on Monday. She brushed off the fact that she was too tired after the conference. That's right, the wine is gone. Returning to the trailer, Macy was so exhausted that she fell asleep right on the street, lounging on a chaise lounge, wearing a two-piece swimsuit that was already too small for her. Nearby, there is an empty glass and an upside-down bottle, and there are candy wrappers lying around. I thought with a smile that I had not seen her relax so much in my presence for a long time. True, one side of her body had already turned quite red in the sun. But well, she is an adult herself. By dinner time, I felt hungry for the first time in a week and happily ate cold chicken and salad. And she never woke up until the sun went down. I finally woke her up, noticing that in the places where she didn't have sunscreen, her skin was badly burned. I turned on a warm shower and made the water not too hot, but it still hurt her. I smeared cream on her burned areas, sat her down to watch TV, and gave her more wine, diluted with vodka, and a hearty lasagna with a lot of cheese. She was completely exhausted when she went to bed. I didn't want to be touched, which, frankly, was to my advantage. I didn't want anything to do with her. On Wednesday, we spent the whole day lazy. I am outside, in the sun, and she is inside, trying not to move her burnt skin. Between meals, she drank 2 bottles of wine, a large bag of chips, and several chocolates. At the same time, she looked very depressed, all pink-red and sickly, while I was calm and tanned. I guessed that I would have to go shopping again. "We have to go to work tomorrow, dear," I said later in the evening, playing the role of a caring husband. "They said there was urgent work there. I'll leave at 5 in the morning and be back as soon as I can." "Listen," she muttered. She didn't care. The next morning, Thursday, I returned to our house at 7. I unscrewed all the interior doors using a screwdriver and took them out into the backyard. At 9, I called the third real estate agency and asked to evaluate the house for a quick sale. Then I dragged our marital bed out of the bedroom, dismantled it, and folded it on top of the doors. He doused everything with gasoline and threw a burning match. The fire broke out instantly. Following this, I began to remove the double-glazed windows, pulled out the frames, and threw them into the fire. The plastic smoked poisonously, the glass cracked and melted, and the furniture burned, emitting vile black smoke. The living room set, dining room furniture, all her things, cabinet doors, bedside tables also flew there. In general, our whole life burned down in one fell swoop. Yes, it all looked creepy. I think the black plume of smoke was visible from space. Planes at the airport were probably redirected to avoid this plume of smog. As a result, I was already carrying a massive oak buffet, and then the young agent whom I called came. The boy was terrified, but could not refuse me when I asked for help in pushing the buffet to the fire. I said that the house would be without doors, furniture, and carpets because everything would burn. He estimated that he could sell it for £160,000 if it was brought back to normal. But I ordered $140,000 or slightly lower for a quick deal. He went home, very pleased that he remained unharmed. And he must have had to dry clean his suit later. The smoke was disgusting. With the carpets and underlayment, which I also threw into the flames, my strength was exhausted, and I finished for today. I drove back to the sea, opening all the van's windows wide to get the fumes out of my clothes and hair. It was a good day, I thought. Already on the way, that same young agent called me. I rolled up the windows to hear him. He still coughed and said that there was a local developer willing to give £120,000 in cash by the end of the week. I said, "Great, we're selling." and we agreed to complete the paperwork on Friday. Today turned out to be a busy day. Although I first moved to the south of France, I never settled in there. The people and the weather were not my thing. As a result, I moved even further south, and now I am quite happy with life in Spain. I live about 20 miles from the coast, in a small town where the people are friendly and not spoiled by tourists. At the same time, there are a lot of Englishmen here who live permanently or spend the winter, so I have someone to chat with in their native language. I bought a small studio 1 floor above the market. There are cafes and a supermarket a stone's throw away. I work as a mechanic in a small workshop on the outskirts, where they repair everything that has a motor. No one is particularly stressed, the work goes slowly, but it's fun. It's fun there. To be honest, it couldn't be better. I don't need much, just like before. True, now I am alone, without a life partner. I feel quite calm and free. So, this afternoon I was pottering around on the lower balcony of my 2-level apartment, relaxing after lunch, when suddenly there was a loud knock on the door. I was surprised. In the midday heat, the entire city either dozed or made love in the shade. I open it, and there's Macy. Yes, in the flesh, bloated, roaring like a sergeant on the parade ground. I finally found you, you bastard. Hello, Macy, I say calmly. To what do I owe a dubious honor? Aren't you going to invite me to come in? The sun is burning. No, I answer. There's not much space. I only have 1 room and 1 bed here, so you won't stay here. But she pushes me away and squeezes inside. Well, yes, I really am a weakling. I could never use force on a woman. But some men beat their wives, and they return to them with gratitude. But for me, it's the other way around. They use me as a doormat. It's unfair, but that's the way it is. God, she's huge now. With 2 hefty suitcases on wheels on the sides, I barely squeezed through, and even going up the hill up the stairs to the studio, it's all shaking. Get my bags, honey, shouts from above. I almost blurted out that she was my ex, but remained silent. I had to drag it. The bags are terribly heavy, as if she were carrying paving stones from the houses I burned down. Oh, it's not bad here, she said, looking around. Yes, and you won't stay here, I repeated. Even if 100 times we are still officially husband and wife, I will file for a final divorce at any time. Haven't submitted it yet? In the meantime, we are technically married, dear. You won't throw your pregnant wife out onto the street. Pregnant, I gasped. Will you let me in or not? I at least need to sit down. Where is your pool, by the way? Why would I suddenly have a pool in my studio? I snap. We'll have to move to another place because I'm giving birth in a couple of months. No, no, and no again. Get out of my house, I yelled. But she had already walked across the room and sat down on my sofa. Meanwhile, I threw off her bags. And anyway, how did you find me? I asked another question. The bank informed me through friendship that your account suddenly began to be replenished with American dollars from a certain company, and then you transferred this money to the account at interest. It was possible to figure out where you received your paper statement. Well, it doesn't matter, I found it. By the way, Gordon doesn't talk to me anymore. I had no doubt, I say. He's now a branch manager and his clients adore him. He's great. I saw him with his wife and children. He pretended not to notice me, she commented. But just recently everything was boiling between us, and, oh, okay, don't you have a TV? I think we should hang a big flat screen on that wall. There is a small one on the mezzanine level, I muttered, pointing upward, next to the bed and bathroom. There is also access to the roof. You can have breakfast there. But it's too hot now. Wow, so you're blonde now. Actually, I was naturally blonde. All my life I painted myself chestnut so that people at the bank would take me seriously. I thought you would guess from the bottles that my hair dye was always the same color. She grinned. Yes, somehow I didn't pay attention, I muttered. Yes, you were always with your head in the clouds, not like. She began, but immediately changed her tone. In general, we are still married and we have a common future. Where can I get something to drink? I can't have alcohol, so I need juice or water. And then we'll go upstairs and take a nap, otherwise it's hard for me. I exhaled in annoyance. There weren't enough words. She suddenly gets up and lifts her dress. Look how I've changed. Honestly, it was huge. The belly really sticks out a lot. Huge white panties with a wide elastic band, tired of holding all her folds, and almost triple-sized breasts, supported by a large bra. Yes, she is really in her 7th or 8th month. Are you pregnant? I ask stupidly, although the answer is already obvious. 7 months. Thank you for noticing and for not offering me the toilet. Yes, I run to the toilet every 5 minutes. Whoa, he's up there, I nod, and she begins to climb the stairs. Is it possible to do this? We'll have to look for housing with a toilet on the same floor as the living room. I answered her. Even if it's 100 floors, you still won't live here. I won't allow it. She had already disappeared into the bathroom, and I heard her voice. Oh, you bastard, you left the seat up. And keep in mind, you owe me a lot of money because we are formally married, and you deprived me of a house and apartment money. So the court ordered the bank to give me a printout of all your accounts. What? I yelled, realizing that she could very well pull this off. Yes, she confirmed that she filed a bench warrant. All accounts are now frozen until the property is divided. She's happy, I'm shocked. But who is the father? This can't be my child. I explode when she leaves the bathroom. I'm sure it's yours. Although I admit that from the point of view of logic, it could have been one of my own. But no, my mother's instinct does not let me down. Nonsense. To officially establish paternity, you will have to undergo a DNA test after birth. We'll go through, and then if it's confirmed that this is your child, you'll have to fork out the money. And if it's not yours, you can live in peace. Although I know that it's yours. Because, firstly, in those tests that you did at the family clinic, there was a fertility check, and the results showed that you can have children. And secondly, the night we last spent the night in the trailer, we had sex. I almost choked with indignation, but she continued. So don't act like you don't know. Yes, but, I began. I also woke up in the morning, saw that it was you who broke into my place, and decided that it was your sudden passion. Of course I was hurt, but now I forgive you, honey. She approached again. Pushing her away, I tried to pull myself together. Okay, if that's all, then you can get out. I won't give you an apartment. I know that I have no choice yet, and you don't have your frozen accounts. I think we can find a compromise, sweetie. And my head was already spinning with thoughts of how to quickly call Gordon and Max and rearrange the cash flows, and at the same time an idea arose. Max mentioned that videos for adults in this situation could sell well on closed sites. After all, I still had cameras. Maybe let her live here for a couple of months, until she gives birth. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.